In this lesson, we're going to look at cube rooting. So in previous lessons, we've actually cubed numbers, and we found that when you cube a number, you multiply it by itself and then itself again. So for example, 4 cubed is 4 times 4 times 4, which gets you 64. Now again, we need an undoing process for this to get us from 64 back to 4, and that's called the cube root. Okay, so which number times itself 3 times makes 64? We know the answer is 4 from up above there. So the cube root of 64 is 4. Now, the way we see it usually is a symbol. It's usually a square root sign with a wee 3 next to it to denote the cube root, because 3 is cubed. So the cube root of 64 is 4. Now again, sometimes when you put these numbers into your calculator and you cube root them, they won't give you whole number answers. Some will give you decimal answers, but we're going to concentrate on whole number answers. I've given you an example here. The cube root of 7 is 1.91 and so on, blah, blah, blah. So let's look at some answers. So we're looking for the cube root of 27. So we're trying to work out what times what makes 27. Now usually the answers to these questions are very small, like single digit numbers. Not always, but quite a lot of the time. Because when you multiply it by itself 3 times, it gets bigger quite quickly. So what times what is 27? Well, that's 3. Better to memorize some of these, because 3 cubed is 27. Okay, cube root of 64. What times what makes 64? Well, that's just 4, because we know that 4 cubed is 64. Cube root of 125. That's just 5, because 5 cubed makes 125. And finally, the cube root of 343. Well, that's 7, because 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. Okay, now if you're trying to work these out in your calculator, which is quite often the case at this level, what you need to do is try and find the cube root button. Now the cube root button in your calculator, you won't find it in a simple calculator. You usually have to have a scientific calculator. It looks like this. It's got the tick and the 3 and a wee square under it. And you can see it sits above the actual button over here. If you look at it, you see the square root sign and you see this bit sitting above. Now to access this bit, certainly in this calculator, you hit shift. So if you hit shift, then that button, the cube root symbol will pop up. And you can try it with 27, hit equals, and see if you get 3. But that's the cube root button in your calculator, and it's quite handy at times to cube root numbers that you don't know the answer to. But my advice is to understand the basic ones like 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed, 5 cubed, maybe even 6 cubed, and then you'll be able to cube root back to the single digit numbers.